I'm going to record this conference. I have a feeling that this call might not go to Facebook today.
It's recording.
So
It's
yes,
recording.
Mataji, very good. Yeah. Okay. So let's go then, shall we? After this brief prayers to the spiritual master. Om Ajnatimarandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padkamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganang Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Saparijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganang Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Gaur Premanande
Hari
Hari Bol. So we'll be continuing on our discussions from the Bhagavad Gita, doing chapter 5, verse number 20. Na prahrishyet priyam paprapya no dujit prapya cha priyam tira buddhira sammudho brahmavid brahmani sitaha. Na prahrishyet priyam prapya no dvijit prapya cha priyam sira buddhir asammudho brahmavid brahmani sitaha. Na prahrishyet priyam prapya no dvijit prapya cha priyam sira buddhir asammudho brahmavid brahmani sitaha. So brahmavid brahmani sitaha. Let's go back and look at the previous verse. What was the previous verse? 19. Iheva terjita sargo yesham samyam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te stitaha. So last time we read that those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity. And then if you go back one more verse, that is 5.18, we'll come to know Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Kavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Right? So there we talked about Samadarshina, sameness, right? So that sameness is being described over here, that the mind is established in sameness in chapter number 19, right? And so here, verse number 19. And so here it was said that they are those who are situated in sameness, right? So they don't see everybody equally. And so sameness meant that you see different people with the same light, with the same idea, right? Whether it's a dog or whether it's a dog eater or a Brahmin, like that, right? Sameness. So there are different, right? Equanimity is when things from outside is more concerning with us. Equanimity is when different kinds of things happen to us in our lives, then we are still the same, right? So equanimity. So if you are in that situation, then you are flawless like Brahman. And we said that last time that Brahman actually, it means the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not Brahman, the effulgence of the Lord, right? So they are flawless like the Lord. Lord is flawless. But again, we should not think that we are the Lord himself, right? So we are flawless like the Lord. So there is some sameness there, right? But not oneness. And then here they said that if you're doing this, then thus they are already situated in Brahmana, right? And what was the Sanskrit for situated in Brahman?
Brahmani.
Brahmani, situated in Brahman.
Oh.
Brahmani.
Stitha or stira.
Stitaha, right? So the two together, Brahmani, Stitaha, situated in the Brahman. Okay, so keep this in mind, Brahmani, Stitaha. So that's something that we all should be aiming for. That how do we go and situate ourselves in the Brahman? So now let's go to our verse for today, which is verse number 20. And do you see something similar that is being said here?
Shraddha-devi.
Yes, Mataji, Brahmani Stitaha.
Brahmani Stitaha, very good for 500 points. Yes, right? That's the reason I went back to that verse to show that again here talking about Brahmani Stitha. And Brahmavid means those who understand Brahman, right? That, like in 15.15, we know Vedanta Krit, Vedavid. So Vid means one who knows, right? Brahmavid, Vedavid, right? So Brahmavid. So now let's look at the synonyms here. So it says na means never. Prahrishit, hrish, harsh, right? All that is the same, rejoicing. And when we add pra to something, it is not just joyful, like, it's a higher level. That's why rejoice, right? So that when there is joy and then there is rejoicing, rejoiceful, right? So, so it's a higher level of joyfulness. So prahrishit, na, never, prahrishit, rejoices. Priyam means pleasant, what I like. Prapya, achieving. Na, does not. Udvijet. Udvijet means udvigna manaha, right? Become agitated. Prapya, obtaining. Cha, also. Apriyam. So there was priyam and then there was apriyam. So priyam is pleasant and apriyam is unpleasant. Sthira buddhihi means self-intelligent. The intelligence does not waver. Asammudaha, unbewildered. Brahmavit, one who knows the Supreme perfectly. Brahmani, in the transcendence. Sthita, situated, right? So here also you see Brahma, the word Brahma is being translated for the Supreme Lord and not to Brahma, the demigod, or to the Brahman effulgence, right? Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. A person who neither rejoices upon receiving something pleasant. What is the Sanskrit for pleasant?
Priyam.
Priyam, correct. And nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant. Who is self-intelligent, right?
Apriyam.
Self-intelligent, self-intelligent, Sanskrit for self-intelligent.
Stira buddhi.
Sthira buddhi, right? Who is unbewildered. What is unbewildered in Sanskrit?
Asammudha.
Asammudha, right?
Asammuda.
And who knows the science of God?
Brahmavid.
Brahmavid. Is already situated in transcendence?
Brahmani.
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 Is already situated in transcendence?
Brahmani.
Stitaha.
Brahmani Sita.
Stitaha, right? Brahmani Stitaha. Okay, purport by Srila Prabhupada. The symptoms of the self-realized person are given herein. The first symptom is that he is not illusioned by the false identification of the body with his true self. He knows perfectly well that he is not this body, but is the fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is therefore not joyful in achieving something, nor does he lament in losing anything which is related to his body. This steadiness of mind is called sthir buddhi or self-intelligence. He is therefore never bewildered by mistaking the gross body for the soul, nor does he accept the body as permanent and disregard the existence of the soul. This knowledge elevates him to the station of knowing the complete science of the absolute truth, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. He thus knows his constitutional position perfectly well without falsely trying to become one with the Supreme in all respects. This is called Brahman realization or self-realization. Such steady consciousness is called what consciousness?
Krishna consciousness.
Krishna consciousness, right? So when you are steady, okay? So I'll stop here. Reflections. Anything that stuck your mind from what we heard so far?
I just have a question about the word Brahman and how it's used in the context to mean, the effulgence and the Lord. Is there a way that we can easily distinguish or understand?
No.
Which one is when? Okay.
No, this will just come from, learning from our spiritual masters that what word means what.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is that the same verse that we read last time, right? Brahmani sthitaha. See, Mayavadis also read the Bhagavad Gita.
Mm-hmm.
They also read the Bhagavad Gita. They interpret the shloka in a different way, right? We are from the Brahma Madhva Gauriya Sampradaya. We listen to our acharyas. They interpret the same verse in a different way, right? So a lot depends on the teacher that we have. So that's why they say, that Krishna himself says that Tad Viddhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upadeshyanti Te Jnanam Jnanina Tattvadarshinaha. Right? So Jnanina Tattvadarshina means that one who has seen the truth. Right. So very interesting thing was that, I was listening to somebody who is a Mayavadi, and he was explaining, he was very impressed by some knowledge that he got from somewhere. And so he was saying that he was describing what happens to the soul when the soul is about to die, and you have been practicing Mayavadi philosophy your whole life, and now you're entitled to get the good results, whatever they may be, if they can be called good results. So they were like, okay, so after when you're dying and you're leaving the body, you'll see a light. And then it was like, oh, but then the soul doesn't want to merge with the light. The soul will not want to merge with the light. Soul will want to stay with the body. Understood, agreed. That soul doesn't want to leave the body. But why would the soul not want to merge with the effulgence if it is Satchidanand, is what I can't understand. But Chat and Chit, there's no Anand there. So then they said, okay, so then what happens is that the spiritual master comes and then he helps you to merge. But then my question is that, well, wasn't how is your spiritual master teaching you all this all along if he had not experienced it himself? And if he has experienced it himself, this means he was already merged into the effulgence. If he was merged into the effulgence, what is he doing now out of the effulgence and with you here, right? It doesn't make sense. Our philosophy explains it so nicely, and which the verse that we did last time, Iha yasya harer dase karmana manasa gira niklav apya avastatu jivan mukta sa uchyate. So we talk, and last verse said iheva, right? Here only you can become a jivan mukta, right? By raising your consciousness to the level of transcendence, where you're guaranteed you'll go back to Godhead. Right? So the same Bhagavad Gita, different people read it, and in different ways, right? Right. For example, somebody said that Sarv Dharma, I follow Bhagavad Gita. Like, I don't believe in God. I don't do anything. I have no spiritual practices, no nothing. Like, why? But Krishna says, Sarv Dharman Paritajya. So just you're taking half piece of it, right? You did not say the other part. You didn't read that. Oh, so people will take things out of the context and present it to the gullible public. Public doesn't understand Sanskrit, right? So they will think, okay, this is nice Guru. They are saying the innocent. So the innocent gets fooled by that, right? So people will use the Bhagavad Gita in a different manner, as whichever way they want to be, right? Somebody in a very joking manner said that, one of the verses says, Ye chapya aksharam avrata, ye chapi aksharam avektam. So he says chapi, he's saying chai pio. So people can interpret the Bhagavad Gita in any way. So that's why it's very important. That's why Prabhupada emphasizes so much on the fact that when you are reading the Bhagavad Gita, please read it from the authorized and bona fide source. and read Bhagavad Gita, which is as it is.
Disease.
Right? In the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Arjuna, now do whatever you want to do. That's why I do whatever I want to do. I'm drinking, I'm having good time. Krishna told me, do whatever you want to do. So taking things out of the context and trying to interpret them to suit our own needs.
That's true.
Well, you are just entangling yourself. And you will very soon you will become some mudha. You will become bewildered by doing these kind of activities because material world is very, very entangling in nature. Okay, good. Thank you for asking that question, Sadhana Mataji. More thoughts that come to your mind? Anything? Are you all set and ready?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
And who is that?
Mataji, this is Preeti.
Hey, Preeti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So, Mataji, we went to Vrindavan with Janva Mataji. So we were
Awesome.
doing the Vrindavan. Yes. So it was a great experience. We were doing Vrindavan Parikrama with her. And she was also doing some shopping for her, all her friends back in Pune, and also for the lordships, So we were stopping at different places, but Mataji wasn't feeling hot or, she was not getting irritated by the weather. And she was walking, being a 72-year-old, and me and one more friend of mine, I'm in my 40s and my friend was in 50s, but we were feeling the heat and, sweating a lot. So this verse which says that a person who is situated in transcendence doesn't, so I was just relating it to a practical experience that I had. And then at last, we just begged Mataji for an auto rickshaw. We said, we need to now take auto rickshaw because it was already 7:30. And then we realized after sitting there, it would take us another 3 hours, apparently, to walk all the way back to this thing. But Mataji wasn't concerned. She was willing to walk. I mean, we didn't even know that it will take so long, but I didn't have the strength to walk anymore.
And she knew it. Yeah, it's the energy, right? They operate on different energies, transcendental energy, right?
Yes.
And often if you see Prabhupada on the morning walk, if you see videos of Srila Prabhupada on the morning walk, Prabhupada, the 70-year-old man, is walking so fast in his ahead and all the young men are trying to catch up with him, right? And some of them said it was very difficult to catch up with Prabhupada. And not only that, I mean, I can't catch up with Radhanath Swami Maharaj. He walks so fast. I mean, what to talk about Prabhupada, even his disciples. Guru Maharaj, no way. I mean, Guru Maharaj, I can still understand, the tall man, difficult to catch, but others also, they work on a different energy. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that how this energy affects us is that, how this energy affects us, and instances of that are found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So we saw Parikshit Maharaj, right in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we say Parikshit Maharaj gets affected by hunger, thirst, and fatigue, right? And so when I was learning the driving here in USA, they had a very nice way to remember what are the things that you're supposed to do. So he said, if you're hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, HALT, then halt, which means don't drive. So HALT, halt, hungry, angry. So it has a hunger and anger has got effect on this body. Right? So it's the same thing happened. So this was unpleasant. Hunger is unpleasant. I want food and my entrails are gnawing at me and I don't get the food. So the mind gets bewildered. When the mind is bewildered, intelligence is lost. When the intelligence is lost, you will do things which are not right. So what did he do? Parikshit Maharaj? What did he do?
He put the snake on his neck.
Correct. He put the snake around the neck of Shamik Rishi. Right. So he was bewildered. So we see this Parikshit Maharaj was, what happened? He was dvijit, right? He was upset because of prapya apriyam, right? He found something which was not pleasant to him. So he got it. So now, why is he not respecting me, right? So disrespect is something you could not tolerate. So he prapya apriyam. So he was not happy with that, right? Now, and then the Shringi, the son of Shamakrisi, right? He saw Aprapya, his father being insulted. Somebody has put the snake around the neck of his father, right? So then he acted. He got bewildered, and then he,
Yeah.
what did he do?
He
Cursed,
Parikshit
cursed,
Maharaj.
Right? He cursed, right? Okay. When all this had happened, Shamakrisi opened his eyes after all this. And then the son is crying and saying that this was happening and this is there and I've cursed him. And what was Shamakrisi's reaction? First, he sees the snake around his neck. He takes the snake, he throws it away like that. Okay, fine. I'm sitting here in the jungle. What more do you expect? Snakes will fall on you like that, right? And then what does he tell his son?
You should not have done this.
You should have not have done this, right? Instead of saying like, very good, yeah, my parivar ki laaj, and I'm a king, how dare you do it? He did not do that. So you see how he's situated in sameness, how he's equipoised, Shamakrishna, right? And then, of course, Parikshit Maharaj, as he's going back, now starts to have the realization, I should not have done that. I should not have done that. And that's why they say angry man is angry twice. First at the other person, and then at himself for having lost the anger. Like that. And then we see that the same Parikshit Maharaj, by the time he reaches the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he has stayed awake for 7 days and 7 nights and not eaten anything, and nor has his teacher. Both are there, right? So Krishna Katha happens, Krishna Katha was happening there, right? So Krishna Katha happens when we have the perfect teacher and the perfect student also, right? Because sometimes people say that, oh, I can't understand this, I can't understand that, because I can't find a perfect teacher. This is Kali Yuga, I can't find a perfect teacher. Then the question to them is that, and are you a perfect student? Who is a perfect student? Tad vidhi pranipatina pariprashnena. Right? So they have to do that. And then these people who have seen the truth, right? They will grant the knowledge to you. So we see that same Parikshit Maharaj, he overcome all that. So next time, was he not hungry? Did the body not demand the food? It demanded. It demanded that, but then he was getting something higher. So that's why in the 12th chapter, second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it says, Vishaya vinivartante in 2.59. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasvarjam rasopyasya param dishtva nivartate. So although if you try to artificially give up certain things, then the taste will still remain. So I'm off ice cream. So that doesn't mean I've stopped liking ice cream. I'm forcefully not like eating it, right? And what it says is, the good news here is that if you find something better than ice cream, you'll stop craving for ice cream. Like that, right? So all that we have to do is to find that something better in life. And Sukdev Goswami gave that to Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj found it in his life. That's why the same king who was 7 days ago, who was upset due to the hunger pangs, he could sit and hear the Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 days, non-stop, right? So the Krishna Katha is purifying. Like that. So then Prabhupada in our purport is saying, and before I go there, another very nice example, and I'd like to read a little bit from that example. It's my favorite chapter, is the story of Chitraketu. It's the story of Chitraketu. Well, even before that, it's the story of Indra. He's the king of all the demigods, right? So Indra, here also is thing, right? He was examples of this. So he was sitting in his kingdom, or in his throne, in his court, and he was surrounded by different kinds of people who were singing his praise, right? Now, I want you to tell me, who do you think could be the ones who are singing Indra's praise in his court? Who could be some possible singers?
Gandharvas, Mataji.
Gandharvas, yeah, because they sing. Good, right? So Gandharvas could be there singing. So people are, they might not necessarily sing his praise, but they can also say Jai Ho, like that, right? He's the king. So they could even say that, right? So Gandharvas are there. Who else do you think are there in the heavenly planets?
Tanaras, Gandharvas.
Yeah.
Also
yeah.
other demigods, Varun
Other
Deva.
demigods, yeah. Right? So they will all be there. So then let us look at Srimad Bhagavatam and see who else was there in his court. Okay, so how do I stop? Share my screen here. Where am I? Yeah, here. Okay.
Is Guru Maharaj?
Will the Guru Maharaj be singing his praises?
No,
he walks
not,
in
he
later.
was in the court, but
No,
he
but the
did
question
not
here,
get up.
Varshana Mataji, is that who else were there? So we should stick to the question.
Vidyadharas, Apsaras, Kinnaras, Patagas, birds, and Uragas, snakes. All of them were offering Indra their
Right.
respects and service.
So it's not just, the handful that we listed, even the birds and snakes and all of that.
Ashwini
So you can
Kumaras.
imagine- So you can just imagine that how much Priyam Prapya was happening, right, for Indra,
Yeah,
right? He's getting so much of Priyam.
so many people are there.
So many people are there. So many people are singing his praise, right?
Aartis,
So he is not. Now he is supposed to be equipoised, but what happened? He got carried away by that, and then comes Varshana Mataji's side of the story, which is that his spiritual master came in, and he did not even think it was necessary for him to go and offer his respects. So this is a classic example of what happens, when you're not equipoised. You get carried away, and then he lost the mercy of his spiritual master. And there's the prayer to the spiritual master that we sing every day. Yasya prasada
Bhagavad
prasada
Prasada,
Yasya prasada
Nagati
topi dhyayam stuvam tasya yashasvi santam vande guru shri charanarvindam. So yasya prasadat bhagavad prasado, yasya aprasadat nagati katopi. Prasad means mercy. So by the mercy of the spiritual master, you will get to know Krishna. Bhagavad prasado, right? And then yasya aprasadan, if you do not get his mercy, nagati katopi, tumhara kuch nahi hone wala, kuch nahi hai, no goal, no destination, nothing. You're like a ship without a rudder, right? So it is that important to pay respects to the spiritual master. So this one, Indra didn't do that. So obviously he disappeared. The spiritual master disappeared. Indra tried to find, but could not. And then the news spread. So there's a very nice network and a communication system between the Swargloka where the demigods live and the Patal Loka where the demons live, Asuras live, right? So the Asuras knew, and then the Asuras had been, on the contrary, the Asuras had pleased their spiritual master a lot, Shukracharya, right? And Shukracharya is not a spiritual master of the Asuras because there's nothing spiritual in them, right? He was a worldly spiritual master telling them all the nice things, like just as a president has advisors, right? To tell him about there's Minister of the Affairs, right? Advisors to the president, prime minister, like that. So they're advisors, antarang salhakar, as we say, right? So they were there, and so he was like that for them. And so he told that this is a good time to attack them because they are without the mercy of the spiritual master. So they lost. And when they lost, then Indra, had to flee, and then under the curse and all that. And somebody said, okay, why don't you do some yagyas? And so he said, okay, I'll do the yagya. And so while he was doing the yagya, for the yagya, they said, okay, go and get the yagya done by this Rishi, Muni, or the Brahmana, whose name was Twashta. And Twashta actually had, so then he said, okay, fine, let us go and do that. Now, Twashta had, Twashta's son, I think, not Twashta, Twashta's son. So Twashta had a wife who was coming from the demon family. So those days people would marry like that, and inter-caste marriages were there still, as you can see from the story. And I think Shukracharya's wife also came from the heavenly planet, so like that. So those kind of marriages were there. And so the son had a little affection for the Asuras also, although his father was Sura, right? He was on the right side, but he had a little bit of affection. So when he was doing the yagya and he was doing the oblations, so what he was doing was that he would put one oblation in favor of the demigods, and he put another thing into another oblation into the yagyas, and that was for the favor of the demons. So Indra hears that, And Indra gets angry. And he takes out his sword and he cuts off the head of the priest. So this is not the right way to behave. Already you offended a Brahmana, your spiritual master. Who is Indra's spiritual master?
Brahaspati.
Brahaspati, good, for 500 points. So Brahaspati, right? So you have already disrespected Brahaspati. And now it's worse. You killed a Brahmana, right? Not good. So, and then of course, when the son is dead, Twashta is very angry. The Twashta gets very, very angry. And then he gets angry, in that anger mode, he produces a demon, right? Now, when the demon has this fight, there are some very glorious statements when he's fighting with Indra, of course. There are some very nice statements that he says, right? But the question then rises that why is this demon talking some things that seem a little bit favorable to the Lord? That's a question Parikshit Maharaj asked in Srimad Bhagavatam to Sukadeva Goswami. And Sukadeva Goswami said, okay, let me tell you the history. Let me tell you about his previous birth, right? So many times while we have been discussing the laws of karma, karmic reaction, why is good happening to bad, like that, all those kind of things that we see. The Bhagavatam has got so many nice stories where I try to, and you're encouraged to connect with the previous birth to see what was going on there, right? So Vritasura, he's an asur, and very hideous looking one for that. But he was Chitraketu in his previous birth, right? So King Chitraketu had 1 million or 10 million wives, but he did not have a single son. And a king needs a son. King needs a son to propagate his dynasty, right? So he doesn't have a son, so he's unhappy, right? So what did he get? Priyam or Apriyam?
Apriyam.
Apriyam, right? He doesn't have a son. Okay. And then one day a rishi comes, Angira rishi comes to his thing, and he says that, well, everything is fine, this is fine, that is fine, but you still look a little bit sad. What's the reason? Then he said, well, it's an open secret, I don't have a son. Can you do something about it? And then Angira said, yes, I can do something about it. I can make sure that you get a son. But remember, this son is going to give you both happiness and distress. Priyam and Apriyam. You're going to get both of them, right? So he says, that's fine. Kids give us trouble all the time, right? Anybody has kids who didn't give them trouble?
Oh, God.
Raise your hands.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Don't get her started on
There's
that.
no answer for that.
Okay. So he says that that's fine. I can handle it, right? So when, of course, then to cut a long story short, the wife gets pregnant and the principal queen, and she gives birth to a son. And then king is now in the 7th heaven of life. Priyam prapya, right? Very, very happy. And then what he started doing, he started neglecting the other 10 million minus 1 wives, right? So then the other wives got, upset with that.
Then starts the problem.
Right? So then the king is very happy, spends time with the son, this and that, every extreme, prapya priyam. And then the other co-wives have got apriyam, right? The king does not take care of them. So it's apriyam, and that's why they get upset. So both the parties are not behaving in an equipoise manner. Neither the king, Chitraketu, nor his other co-wives or his wife also, right? Like that. So he does. So he then enjoying and things like that. So then the ladies, they scheme and they say that, okay, let's kill him. So you see, when this is asammurdho, you are so much bewildered that you're doing something like this, right? Who else did something asammurdho like that? Kekai.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Although it took a long time for Manthara to churn Kekai's mind. Otherwise, Kekai was more fond of Ramchandraji than she was fond of her own son Bharat, right?
That's true.
But then 2 hours with the wrong associating with the wrong person, Manthara, right? She got completely brainwashed and then asked for, the worst possible thing that you could ask for, the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be banished. And then, of course, that led to the death of her husband, right? Subsequently. So, so anyway, so that was another example. So coming back to our examples, these are kings. So everybody is, asamurho, whether prapya priyam or aprapya apriyam. Both of them, both the parties are like that. And then, of course, they decide to poison and then they do it. So the son is dead. And the son is dead. And then we see king forgets. I mean, when you see the king, how do they walk? I mean, sometimes I look at Prabhupada and I see the Prabhupada walk like a king.
Yeah.
He's got a little regal way of walking. Like that, like he had a style, So, so the king falls to the ground. He is unconscious. Like kings don't do that. They're Kshatriyas, right? So he falls to the unconscious, and then the wife falls down. King gets up, wails, and then falls down. Then all this is happening like that, right? And then, of course, enter Angira. This time with Narad Muni with him. And then, then the king is bewildered and he said, well, you said that you're going to give me a son. He said, oh, I told you this son is going to give you happiness and distress. This is the distress. He's going to leave. No, you do something, Mahapurush. You are so great. Please bring the son back. So then Narad Muni brings the son back. The soul, all right, come back into the body. He's got mystic powers, right, to do that. So he does it and sun comes. And sun comes, as soon as the soul enters the body, the son gets up and sits. And then the son and the father says, oh, my dear son, I'm so happy now. You just stay back over here. And he said, looks at Narad and he says, what is he talking? I don't know who this person is. Like, oh, you don't know? Who am I? I'm your father. And then he looks at Narad and he says, I have so many fathers. I don't know which one is my father. I had so many births like that. So then there is a lot of conversation that happens. Majorly Narad Muni now doing the talking with Chitraketu. And finally he says that, I'm going to give you a mantra. And then you pray. And if you follow this mantra strictly for 7 days, you will be able to see God face to face. And so, he does it. He understands that. He thanks. And then he does it. And he does see God face to face. Sankarshan, in the form of Sankarshan. Krishna comes like beautiful white Balram color, like that. So then he also gets elevated and he goes to the planet of the Vidyadharas.
I want to know that mantra, Mataji.
No, you have the Hare Krishna mantra. Because we don't want you to go to Vidyadhar planet. We want you to go up higher, Goloka. Don't take the wrong mantra. Don't take the wrong medicine. Take the medicine prescribed for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So then he goes up, right? So it's not just a person gets the mantra. In favor of King Chitraketu, we also have to say that he was chanting the mantra with full. It's not just here's the mantra, here are the words, and you do it. No.
Yeah.
It was that you have to be fully concentrated on this mantra and do this, and this for 7 days, right? So he did that. So that is also very, very, very much required. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. It's a nice comment that you made, Mataji. So then he sees God face to face, and then God says, okay, now you continue, and then I'll elevating you to the higher planets. You go there, and then you continue to rule that planet, and then you be there, and then for, you'll have some more life there, 50, 60, 70,000 years more, go there, and then come back to me, something, things like that, right? So he's happy there. He's living, and, there are, Vidyadhars are there, and then neighbors will be Gandharvas and all that,
Apsaras.
He's living a nice life there. And then one day he's got a nice aeroplane. So talk about your own personal aeroplane. Like, hey, there's a flying club near where I live. It's like, hey, I'm flying, right? So human beings like to fly, right? Whatever we have not been given, we want it. So we want to fly. So anyway, so he's flying there in his own aeroplane made up of gold. And so he is flying over the Kailash mountains. And as he's flying over the Kailash mountains, who does he see there?
Shiva Parvati.
Shiva and Parvati, right? And so Shiva is teaching to he's got his disciples all lined up there, and he's teaching some tattva in them. And Parvati, normally she's sitting on Shivji's lap, right? So she's sitting on the lap. So Chitraketu finds this to be very, very funny. finds it to be very, very
Sitting
funny.
at his lap.
How can you have a woman sitting on your lap and you to be explaining, philosophical and spiritual things to people, right? You don't see anywhere in ISKCON, right? Any teacher sitting on the Vyasas and does that. So he finds that very, very funny. He just finds it very funny. He finds it as a humorous situation, not that he was offended or anything like that, not that he was saying bad. He just laughed for whatever reason. And then he laughed and said, oh, look at this.
Into trouble.
And
Parvati
then,
cursed.
so Shivji was looking at that, Shivji heard that, Shivji just kept quiet because Shivji and all his disciples also kept quiet, right? So this is also a very important thing, the art of keeping quiet, right? That the spiritual master did not say anything. Why should I speak? Why should I speak in front of my spiritual master? Right? Let him do all the speaking. So they were all quiet. Although his disciples could be anybody, right? Bhoot, Pishachas, anybody could be there. So anyway, but Parvati Mata is very offended by that. And so she curses.
She cursed.
Right? And so when he hears all that curse, then he descends down. And so now, Prapya
Apriyam.
Apriyam, right? So he has Prapya Apriyam. Nobody wants to be cursed. And what was the curse? That you will be born as a demon. Worst possible demon on this earth. And that connects you to Vritasura, who was created by Tushta, because King Indra killed his son, right? So Vishwarupa. So then this one is gone. This one is born. So now after getting Aprapya, which was something which was not very pleasing, one would think, to anybody, he quietly accepts the curse. He quietly accepts the curse, and then he's born. He leaves his body, and at the same time, simultaneously over there, the Indra and all that thing is happening on that side. And then Tvashta does, his oblation, and then this one appears from the fire, Vritasura, right? Demon, very tall, very fierce, and he starts giving grief to this, that, and all the demons, all the demigods. And so then Indra then goes and fights. And what does Indra fight with? He takes a special weapon. What is that weapon called? Indra has a special weapon.
Thunderbolt.
Thunderbolt. Yes, correct. Right? So he takes the thunderbolt and then he goes. And what is the thunderbolt made up of?
The Dichi Muni's bones.
The Dichi Muni's bones, right? So it's not an ordinary one. The Dichi Muni's bones. So he takes the thunderbolt and then he goes to, and he starts to fight. He sits on his Aravat. And then he starts to fight. And so it's the same fight. I mean, the Srimad Bhagavatam will go into the details of describing that fight for those who like the, Veeras, want to hear a little bit about fight. So it'll say he threw the trident and he did that and he did that. And then Vritasura was very powerful. So he took his mace and he hits Airavat on his head, the elephant Airavat on which Indra is seated. So when he hits Airavat on the head, Airavat, is pushed back 14 steps. And then he falls down. So as soon as Airavat falls down, Indra also falls down. And as Indra falls down, the weapon from his hand falls down. And when the weapon from his house falls down, Indra gets Apriyam, because he had worked so hard to get that weapon. There's a whole chapter on that, how they go to the Dichi and beg for his bones. Right? So he's like, what am I going to do? This was my only thing to save myself, and now I got that. So he's sitting there very morose. He's standing there very morose in the battlefield. What am I going to do? I'm going to die. He's morose. And then Vritasura says, no, pick that up. Pick that up and then you fight. Pick that up and you fight. And whenever there is a fight, somebody will be winning and somebody will be losing. Who's going to win and who's going to lose is already destined. It's in the hands of the God. So he keeps on saying, things like that during the war, the battle with Indra. And then Indra, of course, Indra. Indra picks up the thunderbolt. He said, all right, I'm going to pick it up. And so he picks up, and then again the fight starts. And because this is the thunderbolt, right? Because it's the thunderbolt. And it was supposed to, achieve its end, which is it was created for the purpose of killing Vritasura. So Vritasura will be killed. That is for sure, right? But then they are having a nice fight between them. And there are so many philosophical statements that he says, and that which prompted Parikshit Maharaj to ask, why is this demon talking such nice thing? Because he's actually Chitraketu, is actually a devotee of the Lord, right? Who were the other two demons that we know who were devotees of the Lord?
Bali Maharaj.
Bali Maharaj. Not Bali Maharaj. Hiranyakashipu.
Yeah. Hiranyakashipu and
Hiranyaksha.
Hiranyaksha. Right. Who are they?
They are the sons of Diti.
Yeah. But who are they previously?
Jay and Vijay Mataji.
Jay and
Vijay.
Vijay. Correct. Jay and Vijay, right? So they are Jay and Vijay are the devotees. Now they are here as the most classic example. Now, the answer that Bali Maharaj is not true. Bali Maharaj is
Bali Maharaj. He's a very good.
he's not a devotee. He will become a devotee, becomes a devotee, but Bali Maharaj is not. He's a Asura, right? And then some mercy and all, he's going there. Okay. So so then he's fighting with Indra. And there's a very nice verse that he says, Aham hare tava paday kamula dasanu daso bhavitasmi bhuya. Very, very nice verse. And I'm going to bring it up. Let's just read that to see how as Vritasura is dying, which means that as Vritasura is getting something, Priya or Apriya?
Apriya.
Death is Priya?
Apriya.
Apriya, right? He's getting Apriya. So this is from the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, where this story comes of Vritasura, and 6:11:24. Let me just bring up here 6:11:24. Aham hare tava paday kamula dasanu daso bhavitasmi bhuyaha manasmarita shupatir gunamse vinita karma karotu kayaha. So in the translation, he's saying, now he's dying, right? Oh my Lord, oh Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? Right? So interesting thing over here. I'm just trying to find my concentration here. Oh my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, will I again be able to be a servant of your eternal servants who find shelter only at your lotus feet? O Lord of my life, may I again become their servants so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes. My words always glorify those attributes and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship. What do you think about this statement?
Very profound.
Profound.
Very nice.
That's a very nice feeling, right? And let's see what Prabhupada says in the purport to that, right? So he's saying this verse gives the sum and substance of devotional life. One must first become a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord, dasanu dasa. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised, and he also showed by his own example, that a living entity should always desire to be a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, the maintainer of the gopis, gopi, bhartur, pad kamalyor, das, dasanu dasa. This means that one must accept a spiritual master who comes in the disciplic succession and is a servant of the Lord. Under his direction, one must then engage one's three properties, namely his body, mind, and the words, right? So body, mind, and word. In which other verse do we talk about this? Very famous and very often quoted. We discussed that verse many times in these classes over the past 10 years now. Very famous verse. Hit vak.
Oh, Cheto Darpan? No.
No. Cheto Darpan is cleansing the mind. No. Tattenukampam susamikshamano bhunjanamevatma kritam vipakam hridvak vapubhir hidadan namaste jive tayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. So, right, by his body, mind, and his words, right? Similarly, here also, three properties, namely his body, mind, and words, right? And here it's here he's saying karotu kaya manas tashu patir gunam se granita va karma karotu kaya. Right? So his actions, kaya is his body, like that. So he's saying the body should be engaged in physical activity under the order of the spiritual master. The mind should think of Krishna incessantly. And one's word should be engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord. If one is thus engaged in the loving service of the Lord, one's life is successful. And if one is engaged in glorifying the Lord, what kind of relationship does he have with the Lord? The one who glorifies the Lord?
As a servant of the Lord, devotee of the Lord, glorified.
Lord has a special relationship with him. He says that in Bhagavad Gita. I'll give you a hint. He says that in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Mataji, where Krishna promises that he is not lost to me and I'm not lost to him.
Well, that is a situation, right? It's not necessarily telling about God, how God feels about that person, right? Think a little hard. It's a very famous verse.
Is it about being his best friend?
Dearmost, he will be very dear
Friend.
to
Yeah.
He says, I'm the protector. Mamekam Sharnam Praja.
Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, he's telling everybody. And
Yes,
Arjuna, Sarvdharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, right? Here, Ya idam paramam kuhyam madbhakteshvabhidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mam evasyati asamshayaha. For one who explains the supreme secret to the devotee, pure devotional service is guaranteed. At the end, he will come back to me, right? So then also, next line is the one, right? 69. Don't forget that. Nacha tasman manisheshu kaschin me priyakrittamaha bhavita nacha me tasmat anya priyataro bhuvi. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear than him. That is the relationship that Krishna has with anybody who preaches the glories of the Lord. So after listening to this word, what are the actions that you should be performing?
Devotional service.
You should
always glorify.
preach. Yeah. Preach, right? Right. And that's why in ISKCON, everybody is supposed to preach. And that's why we emphasize on learning the shastras properly so that you can preach, because there's one way of becoming Krishna's buddy, bosom buddy, right? If you please Krishna like that. Okay. So again, did you notice some word here in this verse, which is related to our verse from today?
Priya.
What was it?
Priya.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, Priya.
Right? So you see, this Priya and Apriya is something. Why do we have this thing of liking and not liking? Because it's coming from Krishna. Krishna also has this Priya thing in him. So we do that, right? So anyway, so that is the mood. That was the mood of Vritasura, right? So the same Vritasura who was, in the life of a Chitraketu, he got Apriyam and he was so agitated. But then he gets self-realization, he has God realization, he sees God. And then he meets Apriya again, which is the curse from Parvati, and his behavior is so different. And then he meets death, and then his behavior is glorifiable at the time of his death, right? Vritasura's death is such an amazing death, right? So now when all that is happening while he's dying, what actually happens is that Indra enters into his mouth, because Indra has got mystic power, so he can become small. So he enters into the mouth, through the mouth of the demon, into his stomach. And from inside his stomach, he tears open his stomach and he comes out. Now, when you tear open somebody's stomach, they die. Right? So that's how Vritasura dies. Now, so then Indra does that, and then Vrita falls, and then what Indra does is, he doesn't know that Vritasura is dead. So, or that he needs to do his thing. So then he takes this thunderbolt for 1 full year. he tries to cut the neck. It takes him 1 full year to cut off the neck of Vritasura from the body, from his body, like that, right? So interesting thing that the acharyas tell about this is that when Vritasura is, is already glorifying the Lord, he's already in that. He already knows the results, that this thunderbolt is there, I have to die. So he goes into meditation and he already was dead. He was already dead when Indra came out of his body. And because after the death, the rigor mortis sets, right? The body becomes stiff. And that is why it took 1 full year for Indra to cut off the head, because it was so stiff. The neck had become so stiff because of that. So although one might think that he was dying such a bad death, and although one might think that Vritasura lost the battle, but no, it was not Vritasura who lost the battle. It was actually Indra who lost the battle. Although he got back whatever he needed, but it was Indra who loses. So again, we might sometimes think that, I'm getting this apriya. I'm getting this apriya. Then maybe it's all bad for me. But not. Kunti Maharani actually said that, give me all these apriya, give me all these bad things. Because when these bad things really happen to me, I come and then I surrender myself to you, like that, right? So if you look at this material world, right? When you look at this material world, what is this material world?
Dukkha
Dukhalayam ashashvatam, right? It's a place of misery. Right? And then so many, like so many examples have been given to tell you the dukhalayam aspect of it, right? That is, sometimes when we are cooking the food and our hand touches a hot utensil, we don't like it, right? It burns. It's apriya, right? So fire is not priya. Too much of fire. We like heat. Actually, we don't like heat. We like warmth, right? We don't like heat. So when there is heat, we don't like it. When there's fire, we don't like it, right? So sometimes sansara dava nalalita tranaya karunya pranadinatvam praptasya kalyana vande guru Shri Dayananda. Right? So here they are equating this ocean, this material world as what? What is the equation there?
Dabanal.
As a
Dabanal
Dava. What is Davanal?
is
Fire.
fire, forest fire.
It's a forest fire, right? Yeah. So it is being
Shraddha-devi.
right. Sansara Davanala. So here, then in chapter 12 of Bhagavad, I'm just trying to look at that that verse. I think it comes. It's a 6 or 7. Let me bring that up. Where there's another simile for this. Yeah, 6 and 7. Okay, let me bring it up here. Verses 6 and 7, 6 and 7 here. Okay. So where Arjuna is asking which is better, those who pray to the impersonal Brahman or those who pray to me, like that. And he explains that, it's better to pray to the form, because if you do not pray to the form, then it is difficult. Klesho adhiktar, in the verse previous to this, he says, Klesho adhiktar astesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gater dukkham dehavat bheravapyati. So basically he's saying that because you are in a body, for you, it will be very difficult to meditate on something which doesn't have a body, because you cannot conceptualize something like that. How can it not have a shape? Everything that I know has a shape, right? So then he says, on the other hand, so which is like if you're trying to do the Mayavadi way or the Nirakari way, then or the impersonalist way, then it will be difficult for you. But then on the other hand, if you become my devotee, what's going to happen, right? So here he's saying, Ye tu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya matparaha ananyaneva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samudhirta mrityu sansara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasam. So here he's equating this world to something. Anything you see, any similarity you see here, any similes being used here? Concentrate on this verse.
Mrityu Sansara Sagara.
Yeah, and what is that? Good for 500 points. What is that? What is the comparison he's making? This material world is equated to what?
Like an ocean.
Like an ocean, right? So this material world is like an ocean, right? And so when you are lying by the ocean, some oceans are very calm and peaceful, Prashant, Mahasagar, right? And some oceans are agitating oceans. So in Prabhupada Leelamrita, Prabhupada talks about an ocean that was agitating, usually. What ocean is that? Quiz. Which ocean did Prabhupada cross to come to America?
Atlantic.
Atlantic, right? Atlantic is a very ferocious ocean. And it was Krishna's mercy that, that sailing was smooth. Of course, inside the boat, Prabhupada was having heart attacks. That's a different thing. So when you are in an ocean, there will be either the ocean will be silent, it's nice, or there will be waves in the ocean, right? So these ups and downs that you get, right? These ups and downs that you get in life are like the waves of an ocean. Right? So when Prabhupada comes to America, he's on a boat, right? And so there is a storm, so then the boat will wave like that, right? And then the boat comes and stops at some city. So or the ship actually, how does the ship stop? What makes the ship stop at one place? I mean, of course, you switch off the motor, but then there is air can take away the ship, right? Anywhere.
Anchor.
Correct, for 500 points. So there is an anchor, right? So in our lives also, in our life, we are living in an ocean of material, right? In a material ocean. There will be waves. And the waves can be short, sweet waves that come and touch our feet, or there can be waves that come and hit us on the head and we fall, right? So Priyam, Apriyam. Waves can be of two types, Apriyam and Priyam waves. So they'll come and hit us. So we need an anchor so that you don't get blown away. So that anchor is God. That's why he says, Sarvdharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam papebhyo mokshasyami masuchaha. Right? So I am, do not doubt, do not fear. I make me your anchor. Right? So now there is an anchor is there, right? But you have to attach yourself to that anchor, right? The anchor has to be put there into the water, then it stays there, right? So you have to be attached to that anchor, right? How are you going to be attached to the anchor, right?
By the mercy of the Guru Maharaj.
By the mercy of the Guru Maharaj, and you have to get, first, I don't even know that there is an anchor in my life. Whenever there is problem, I try to find my material solutions to that problem, right? So first of all, then, I should know that there is God, right? And then he is my only anchor, right? So then I should know about the God. I should know about my relationship with God. What was the relationship that we were talking about and that Vitasura was saying? Servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord.
Dasan.
Yeah. So that's my relationship with Krishna. That's my relationship, to understand my relationship with the anchor, right? And then, so you have to do that, right? So we are not another two stages in which we can be, which we can be there in our lives. So if the anchor is there, so suppose there is, anchor can be, now I gave the example of a boat, right? And the boat is going. I could also be just, standing in the sea like that. I could be swimming in the sea, right? If I'm swimming in the sea or in some body of the ocean, and if you tie me to an anchor, what's going to happen? It's going to pull me down into the ocean, right? So in such cases, if you're not in a boat, if you're not in a hollow thing that can float, then that maybe I need a pole or something that I can go and catch to, right? So I can go and hold on to the anchor. So how do I hold on to that anchor? Is the devotional service. Right? So devotional service you have to do nityam, every day. You have to do Bhagavata Sevaya. Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, to do that, right? So once you reach at that stage, once you get into the practice of doing it, right, then you will get, equanimity, samandrishtva, you'll be able to do all that is being said in the previous verses. And then you will be in a situation where, gachanti apunar avrittam. Because once you, tad buddhyas, tad atmanas, we did that a couple of weeks ago, tad buddhyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtha, tad parayanaha. So tad, into that God, you invest your intelligence, tad buddhya, tad atmanas, you invest your mind, right? Tad nishtha, your faith should also be in God only. Tad nishtha, tad parayana, you surrender to the Lord. Then gachanti apunar avrittam. When you leave this body, you're not going to come back. Like that, right? So I'm going to stop over here and open up for any questions that you may have.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji,
Hare
this
Krishna.
dasanudas thing,
Yeah.
being the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Mataji, can you explain it in a practical way? How should we do it? Does it mean that just being in the association of the devotees who are exalted, who are higher than us, will that help us so that we learn from them?
That definitely, devotional service definitely helps. Being in the association always helps. Being in the wrong association also will help in going to the wrong association. Like I gave the example of Manthara, right? She was in the wrong association. But what is pure devotional service? Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyana avrittam anukulyena bhaktan anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhakte murchate. So true devotional service is you have to be active. So association of devotee, what exactly does association mean? I go and sit in somebody's class as association, right? I sat with him for 3 hours. There's some exalted sannyasi. Association, yes. Did you get knowledge? Yes. But you were the taker. What did you give? Where is your fees for the class? You have to pay your dues, right? You have to pay the dues, right? So then you will do seva. So seva is very important. Now when it comes to seva, right? It's like, yeah, I can touch the deities. No, I don't do the dishes in the kitchen, by the way. I'm chanting 16 rounds. That is not dasanudasa. That you're just trying to come close to Krishna. Right? Because I can sweep the altar. I won't sweep the main temple room. Sorry. Right? I'm doing direct service to Krishna. I have a relationship with Krishna. You don't know. I talk to him. When I open my wardrobe and I say, Krishna, you tell me what sari I should wear. And he tells me. We have to learn to distinguish between the mind's voice and the super soul's voice inside our heart. Right? Who's telling you to wear what sari? Like that. I've seen people say that, right? So, das means that you should be Trinadapi sunichena taror api sahasruna amani na manadena. So Trinadapi suniche means that you have to be humbler than a blade of glass. That basically means that I could be the vice president of an organization. I could be a director, manager, or super intelligent scientist or whatever. When I come to the temple, I'm on the floor washing I'm offering obeisances to the Lord. And that's one of the things that we teach to do, right? Offer obeisances to the Lord. Why? Because it's the first time that your head goes to a level below your heart when you're offering the obeisances, especially Mataji's, right? Like that. So it goes at a level lower than that. And that's where we should be. Otherwise, we're very haughty, heavy-headed, right? Heavy-headed like that. So now the interesting thing is that why does Krishna say that? I mean, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, das, dasanudas, right? So instead of serving Krishna, like for example, in our temple, the Ramananda Sakha Prabhu, right? He has completely dedicated his life to taking care of the temple and taking care of the deities. And so when I come to the deities, should I serve Krishna or should I serve Ramananda? Who should I serve, right? And the answer is serve Ramananda. Right? Okay, now Ramananda, but Krishnangi Mataji is serving Ramananda. So I can't serve Ramananda. Well, then you serve Krishnangi.
Krishnangi Mataji.
That's the idea. That's the idea, right? And why?
Dasanudasa.
Very interesting thing. The question is, why do you think this is being recommended? And there's a very sweet answer to that, right? So when Lord Krishna sees from the altar, Ramananda Sakha Prabhu doing all kinds of things for him. All kinds of service, getting up early in the morning, you get temple clean, this, that, whole thing. Managing temple is a enterprise, So Krishna wants to reciprocate. He wants to serve Ramananda. He wants, Ramananda, I want to press your feet. And now Ramananda is going to allow that? No. So when you press Ramananda's feet, Krishna is happy. That at least my devotee is getting
doing.
My devotee is getting some help. My dear devotee is being taken care of by somebody else. Who is that somebody else? You. So then you are happy. Now you say, no, I'm a Mataji, I cannot press Prabhuji's feet. Now fine. Find somebody else who's cooking for Ramananda Sakha Prabhu. Go chop the vegetables for her. Then you are serving Krishna indirectly. So the interesting thing is that as far removed as you are from Krishna, the closer you get to Krishna. And that's why I say Krishna ko samajhna is very difficult. It defies all laws of nature, right? How can I be close to somebody by staying away from them? Right? But this is by das, and dasa. Actually, they say 1,000,000 times removed. I mean, I remember there was a Rath Yatra festival in San Francisco. I think, almost 7-8 years ago, I was there. And in San Francisco, Mark Twain said that, the coldest place in the world is summer in San Francisco. So it's very, very cold. So very, very cold. And so we had the whole day, and the sun comes and goes. And so there were people who were cooking, there were some people who were danced, and there was a rath, people distributed books, some were on the rath, they were doing all those kinds of things, right? And in the evening, it became so cold there that people were like, oh my goodness, I just want to go home. And then I saw a Prabhupada disciple picking up all the things from the grass on the ground and walking to a trash can and putting the things there. And I was so impressed by his mood of service. He's not saying that, I am Prabhupada's disciple. You know what? I need special treatment. I'm Prabhupada's disciple. No. He was serving all of us. You can imagine how pleased Krishna would be by such an act. That's das, and das. And so when we engage, right, when we engage in this kind of service, which is also devotional service, when we engage in the acts of devotional service, so what happens is that viraktir, the virakti comes by itself. And there's a very nice verse. It says, bhakti paresha anubhava, viraktir, tri ekakalaha. So what happens, what it says is that, when you do devotional service to the Lord, then, you will get satisfaction. You will get satisfaction. You'll also get virakti. Just as when you are eating food, right? When you're hungry, right? When you're hungry, then if you give food to the person, then you're eating the food. You're eating the food. You're eating. And when you're full, you say, one more chapati? No. Right? And sometimes you're so hungry, you sit down and say, I'm so hungry, I can eat 10 chapatis. And by the time you're on to the third chapati, you're like, fourth? No. Because you are full, right? So this is also what happens in devotional service with the Lord, that we become full. Whatever our needs, our desires are, they're getting full, because the basic need of the soul is to have love of Godhead. And that comes from doing devotional service. So when you are completely full, you don't care whether you got priya or apriya in the material world. You just don't care, because we have got abundance with you. Right? There was a very interesting conversation that was floating on, not a complex conversation, but a very nice observation that was going on. And that was, conversation was that the question was, it was an observation that if Bill Gates, the Microsoft Bill Gates, if Bill Gates is walking and a $10 bill falls off his pocket, should he bend down and pick it up, or should he just let it be? Right? And the answer was that he should just let it be on the floor, because the time it will take for him to bend down and pick it up, he earns much more money than $10 in that period of time, because he's so rich. So basically, then he can ignore. And you know what? I saw that in my life. I saw that in my life once I was at Safeway many, many years ago, 20 years ago here in America. I was very new, 2025. And so I was standing at the cashiers checking out. So the man in front of me, he checked out something. He walked, a young man, and then I was checking out. And so he had, so the machine gave some change, right? Machine made some change for his purchases. And so he grabbed the change and he put it in his hip pocket, at the back of this pant. He put it there and he was walking away and some change fell down. And just he turned his back, he took the chain and then he walked. He didn't even bother to bend down and pick up the chain. Why? He's full. He's got so much more. He's got so much more that he doesn't doesn't care about that at all, right? When he reaches that stage, he's got so much of money. Or us, we have got so much of satisfaction, we don't care. Whether some skirmishes come, some wave comes and hits us, we don't care. Like that, right? On the other hand, right? On the other hand, when this money falls off from his pocket, right? And there's a beggar over there. And the beggar grabs for that money, right? He grabs for the money and guess what? There's another beggar and the boat will start fighting over it. See? Because they are not full. They need that money. There's a gap over there. They need it. They will fight. And then you can imagine if the coin goes into the gutter, what's going to happen? Right? Aprapya prem, prapta. So devotional service is the only way that we will be full. We will feel full, just as when we eat food, when we start to eat food, then simultaneously these activities of being full, of being satisfied and being nourished, all three of them happen at the same time. Similarly, when you do devotional service, then you will have love for Godhead will increase, and then your virakti from the material world will also increase simultaneously. You will not even know. Just as all the Hare Krishnas say that, I don't even know when I stopped eating onion and garlic. I don't know. It just happened. Because that inner satisfaction is coming. You've developed a higher taste. Param drishtva nivartate. You have found something higher like that, right? So I'll stop here. And thank you so much for joining the call. Those of you watching us on Facebook and hopefully YouTube. And also here on Zoom. And if you'd like to mention, and special thanks to Sulekha and Suruchi Mataji's mom, who's watching us from Irvine, and also their Mamiji, who's watching us there. So thank you very much for having you here. Hare Krishna. Danvat pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hari bol, Hari bol. Yeah. Any question or any reflections?
Very good reflection.
कोई प्रश्न है? कुछ चीज अच्छी लगी, कुछ चीज अच्छी नहीं लगी.
How is full? That's full. That's good.
Very
That's
nice.
good, Mataji. That's
Very
very good. We're all full.
Yeah, full. Yeah, that's what. The only Krishna consciousness that can actually satisfy your hunger. It was actually a very interesting thing. I was reading it in a very different context for some of the projects that I do for ISKCON, for Krishna consciousness, advertising, evangelizing and things like that. And one of the things that I heard over there was that people feel satisfied when they have something nice to say, right? They get some kind of a happiness when they tell you something about something nice that they had to tell, right? It could be even something like, hey, did you hear about the Tabla restaurant? Did you hear about the saffron restaurant? Oh, the chola bhatura, amazing. Something like that. You're telling them something, you'll feel so good. What was startling to me was that it said that when you do something like that, you might get the same type of happiness that you might get from something else that you like very much, which is food, eating food, right? So that is one of the reasons that when you are engaged in Krishna Katha, not only speaking Krishna Katha, but also hearing about Krishna Katha, what happens is that hunger and the desire to eat goes away. That's why we can sit for hours and hours. And that's why Parikshit Maharaj, because he was hearing from the perfect teacher and he was the perfect listener, right? He was listening and he was, Sukadeva Goswami was teaching. And that's why for 7 days they could stay without eating anything because they found, you get the same effect. You get the same effect.
That's why we though we are full, we still want to go up with this katha.
And that's the interesting thing.
We don't want Mataji to leave.
Right. And the reason is that Hari Ananta, Hari Katha Ananta. Right. So Hari Kananta, how would you continue Hari Katha? Back. The idea is that you hear from here and you continue the Hari Katha. And one way to continue is to continue your chanting, right? Go and try to tell it to somebody, right? Write something about it. Hari Katha can also be done by creating a blog on the internet and sharing Krishna Katha there, There's so many ways that you can share Krishna Katha. There's people there. Yeah.
Mataji, are you coming tomorrow morning?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm coming there. Actually, I'll be for the whole day practically. Yeah. So we have this big event coming where we are packing certain books on 15th of July. And so, yeah, I have to.
Event is on next Saturday, right, Mataji?
Yeah. 15th is next Saturday.
So what are you doing tomorrow?
Oh, I have to come and meet people, right? The book list. There's a lot of planning that happens. A lot of.
This is Microsoft, right?
Yeah. Microsoft and Apple also, perhaps.
Oh,
Yeah.
Apple also. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, Suruchi Mataji, Oracle has now got a new rule that Oracle allows its employees to take time off from work, like Google does, from work and do volunteer services for any organization that they like to, right?
So that's good.
They don't give money for that, but they give you time off. Yeah.
I would like to contribute, Mataji. So please me.
But first we need to set up some program at Oracle. I think we haven't done that. Radhakar Prabhu is working on it. I was talking to him on that. And I don't know how remote contributions can be done because this is volunteer work, right? You have to do. So I think we'll talk more with the persons there to see whether we can engage people remotely in planning. Because some companies like some companies are very liberal in that. For example, they say, okay, this is volunteer work, but volunteer work like book distribution is volunteer work. Suppose I was in a company that allowed me to log my volunteer hours. Then what about the 6 hours, honestly, 6 hours of meetings that I had yesterday to set up this event, right? And another 6 hours today, right? 12 hours. Is his not volunteer work? It is volunteer work, right? Because I'm not being paid for that. So some companies are like that. Some companies aren't like that. So we'll have to do some little more research on that. But I just came to know about it just a few weeks ago. So I thought I'll share that news with you. Or another option is that you can move to Bay Area.
God willing, Krishna willing, get
your sister is here. You have a very strong reason to move. And bring Mamiji also with you.
Both are here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Mami and Mami both are here. Very good.
We all enjoying your class, Mataji. Really enjoyed the class lecture today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Hare
right.
Krishna.
Yeah, so good.
Varsana Mataji wants to say something.
Mataji, go ahead, say that. Yeah, sorry. Do you have any quiet today? Huh?
Yeah, Shukracharya was a spiritual master of Indra, and Shukracharya was a spiritual master of Bali Maharaj also.
No,
He wasn't of Indra. Shukracharya was only
Bali Maharaj.
Brahaspati was
only Bali Maharaj.
only Bali Maharaj, yeah.
I was
Brihaspati.
Yeah, Brihaspati.
Brihaspati was Bali Maharaj.
No, Brihaspati is Indra's.
Indra.
Don't confuse others. So, yeah. So what I was just saying was that the kind of spiritual master that Shukracharya is, right? He's also a spiritual master, right? And I am saying spiritual because he will tell spiritual things to Bali Maharaj. He will quote from the Vedas. So when Vaman Dev comes and begs for hold on, Mataji. When Vaman Dev comes and he begs for, okay, give me 4 steps of land. Then Shukracharya understood that this is Vishnu, right? Who has come. And so he's telling you like, no, don't do it. And then Bali Maharaj turns and says, yeah, I know. Thank you very much, my dear teacher. You have been teaching me from the Vedas, but only up till Dharma, Arth, Kama, right? How can I use the Vedas to get things for my own enjoyment? You have taught me that. But you have forgotten the essence of the Vedas, and which is Vedesta Sarver Aham Eva Vedya. You have forgotten the fact that, from the Vedas ultimately should lead to Krishna. So if Krishna is coming here and asking me for 3 steps of land, I will give it. I will surrender, right?
Thank you so much.
So that's a difference. There's a big difference between a spiritual master and spiritual master. There can be all kinds of spiritual masters. How long are they going to take you into your journey back to Godhead?
Yes, Mataji.
Hare
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And
Vanchikal. Okay, sorry, Sutapa, were you saying something?
no, Mataji, I leave. That's why.
All right. Okay, good. Ankur is also here.
Thank you so much, Shraddha
Mataji.
Mataji.
Thank you.
You're the best.
You are the best. Krishna Katha cannot happen without, two are needed. The speaker and the listener and everybody in between.
Yeah.
Vanchikal
Sorry,
Patram
Mataji.
Was there a question that somebody was saying something?
No, we were all saying Vachakalpa.
Okay, good. Yeah, before that I thought I heard something.
No, Varshana Mataji
Thank
was
you,
saying
Mataji.
thank you.
Hari
And I
Hari
said-
Bol!
Thank you,
Gopal
Mataji.
Nandel! Hari Hari Bol!